What's up, gang? We're back at it again with another rant brought forth by some of the stanky voices of the internet that unfortunately made my eyeballs their target and blasted right through them to pummel my poor brain. This time, about a topic that's been brewing and growing for a long time. This ain't a recent problem in the slightest. I would only say that it exploded in the past decade or so. And hell, this isn't even the first time I've touched on this topic. The very first video I ever had gained some nice traction had me rambling about this for a little bit at the end, but I've always wanted to go more in depth on it. So allow me to use a nice hearty example to showcase what I mean. The big, boomy boy himself, Bakugo. Okay, that's all you're getting. I'm sure you get the picture already, right? You don't? Man, look at the title of the video! What I mean in regards to Bakugo and other characters in similar situations as him is specifically the discourse that surrounds their character arcs. By that, I mean characters that start out rather assholish or even practically evil in ways, but then learn the error of their ways and strive to become better human beings. The range of their dickishness varies from character to character, with some being far more forgivable in the eyes of the public than others, and sometimes understandably, but we'll get to that. But the constant that I see amongst characters with this reception is that many people absolutely hate the idea of dicks growing. I probably could have worded that a bit better. This often ends up with people disregarding the story, the characters involved, or even the authors themselves, because they view this as a moral failing that should never be allowed. Even just enjoying the characters in question or finding them intriguing is seen as reprehensible by these types, because for whatever godforsaken reason, they view the creation or enjoyment of these characters as a condoning of their reprehensible actions. Like, no, nigga, these are two different things, and it's typically pretty easy to tell when an author or viewer actually is condoning of that character's disgusting actions.
Cue that boy! Cue that!
For starters, they wouldn't showcase those actions as all that terrible, sometimes even attempting to justify it. It's why I don't think I could ever get into those super edgy revenge manga or manhwa, because it feels like they have to make literally everybody but the MC and his posse the most disgusting, irredeemable pieces of filth possible to make the MC's horrific actions seem justified as a response. Simply not my cup of tea. So basically, not at all what goes on in a story like My Hero, for example. And to expand on that, I'm gonna talk about a silent voice actually. Yeah, I baited you. MHA can come up later, bucko. Now for the heathens that haven't watched a silent voice before or know of its story, let me get you caught up real quick. Our protagonist is a high school boy named Shoya. Now Shoya, in current day, may seem rather unassuming, even kinda skittish and shy actually, not to mention depressed. But as a 12-year-old boy, not so much. Him and his homies used to relentlessly bully the new and deaf girl at their school, Shoko, for really nothing beyond the fact that she was different. They'd make fun of her, mess with her, and even steal and destroy her hearing aids. Like these niggas were demons. But this all changed rather suddenly when finally Shoya is rightfully called out for his behavior by the school. Only thing is, his homies were not ride or dies. They wrote off the moment he got called out and used him as a scapegoat for the deplorable actions they all had a part in. As you can imagine, this fractured their friend group, and Shoko also completely understandably moved to a new school. And now, back in current day, you can see how utterly different Shoya is compared to back then. He's no longer the bratty bully that he used to be, but rather avoidant of everything and everyone instead, from his feelings to the people around him. However, he has to face and tackle all that guilt that's been eating away at him rather suddenly when he runs into Shoko again after all these years. She shockingly doesn't harbor all that much outward hatred to him. In fact, she's rather friendly. She's a better man than me for real. So what do? They become friends. Shoko gives him a second chance despite how he and his friends treated her as kids, and he grows to be a better and kinder person because of it. But not everyone is as forgiving as she is, which is probably the more believable response, most namely Shoko's sister and mom. Like, they hate this nigga, and I mean, can you really blame them? That kid was an actual menace, so they understandably don't want Shoko anywhere near the guy for a good while. But eventually, even they warm up to him and realize that he's simply not the same kid anymore. The little bully boy's becoming a big non-bully man. Even Shoya's old friends start popping back up and worming their way back into things. Mostly for the worst for a little bit, I can't lie. Especially Naoka. Like, you know what? I'm glad Shoko's mom slapped her ass. This girl was dumb. At least Shoya's new homie Tomohiro was a real one from the jump. That's a real friend right there. But as the story progresses, we definitely see Shoya and Shoko's friendship grow into more than just friends. And honestly, it was really cute seeing that love blossom along with Shoya's development as a person. So of course, seeing such a beautiful and touching story, there have to be niggas that think it's evil and deplorable. And why is that? Because that 12-year-old bully boy was a bully. And people, especially kids, can never change and become better individuals. If you're bad, you have to stay bad. Any story suggesting otherwise is just apologist propaganda for bad people. Sounds exactly like the rat bastards that think that any showing of a character being both a good person and a cop is propaganda. Like, that's not how it works. These things aren't so black and white, just like how people aren't just black and white. Except for black and white people, but that ain't the point. I get that stories involving more personable, relatable offenses like bullying or any kind of abuse are harder for some people to move past, especially if they've experienced it themselves, because it's easier to understand and empathize with. Seeing a character blow up an entire town is objectively one of the most heinous things a character could do. But I don't think most people reading and watching these stories have really experienced that themselves. God, I hope not. We know it's a horrendous thing to do, but seeing a different character bullying someone to the point of depression or possibly even worse is something that most people can instantly understand. And that makes it way easier to hate the bullies more over the mass murderer, despite the genocidal maniac being objectively the more deplorable human being. And hey, despite speaking with such authority about this sucking most of the time, I'm not immune to this. Like, not to get too deep into Chainsaw Man manga spoilers, but while Makima is most definitely the more heinous character, she doesn't get my blood boiling like that bastard Barrel bro. I just want to knock his ugly ass head into next week and cut his nuts off. And don't get me wrong, he's still pretty damn heinous himself. He certainly ain't no saint. Far from it, actually. But Makima has definitely done far worse things on far worse scales. So I understand where these types are coming from in regards to relatability. But where they lose me is when they forget to separate the fiction from reality. They relate a little too hard and just completely dismiss the story because of it. And that's such a crying shame. Granted, I think I have a bit of a leg up on people like this because I always believe that people have the capacity to change for the better. Do I have to forgive them? No, especially if they've done some real nasty or criminal shit. And people don't always want to change either. So many people do, in fact, stay as the same shitty people for their whole lives. But I still believe in the ability for anyone to change. That much is infallible to me. I don't even fully buy into the idea that someone's change of character has to take several years of time under its belt for it to be valid. Depending on their actions, I think it makes sense for it to take a while for people to believe that this growth is legit. But for the person themselves, that shit can be as easy as someone correcting the person in question, them realizing the error of their ways and shutting that shit down immediately. Like that happened to me a few times when I was a younger lad. I didn't realize what I was saying or doing could be hurting my friends, and they told me as much in these scenarios. Do you think I went back to doing that? No, bro. I understood right then and there and changed my ways from then on. It's as simple as that. And because of all this, I'm simply much more receptive to stories that feature shitty people becoming not so shitty. Again, not all stories are created equal in this regard, but I'm more open to the general topic. People like the types I'm talking about though, not so much. And now, I'm finally going to talk about Bakugo. Finally! Now, similar to Shoya, Bakugo was a right bastard at the start of the story. That line of him telling Deku to off himself and pray he comes back as a cooler man stays fresh in the minds of his haters. Remember this for later. Now, when I tell you I hated this nigga at the start of the story, I mean I despised this boy. Loud, angry, boisterous, and for what, huh? Cause you can blow my head smooth off with your bare hands? So what, nigga? My girl can do the same damn thing, if I had one. And she ain't got no explosion quirk. Keep up. And for a hot minute, that's how I felt about this guy. I thought he was gonna be a rival antagonist hybrid of sorts as his role in the story. But after he got kidnapped by the League of Villains, and I saw him completely shoot down their attempts to bring him into villainy, that's when I started to notice something in him. Only embers at this point though. It was only after his rematch with Deku that those embers grew into a proper flame. Was he still a right prick for all those years? Oh, 1000%. But we can see that start to crumble for the first time here. He lays it bare that he's been beating himself up for thinking that him, with all his grandiose power, his praise, his acclamations, was what ended the reign of his idol All Might. Because of how much of an ass he was always like, it never occurred to me that he was even capable of thinking this way. It's at times like this that, despite it all, I gotta remember that he's still just a kid. Kids can be assholes, absolutely, but kids are also meant to learn and grow up. Not all of them do, unfortunately, but they're all capable. Even at the end of their fight, All Might himself drops in, not only to console Bakugo, but to show both him and Deku how they can improve as both people and heroes by helping each other, saving others to win and winning to save others. Deku had the heart and Bakugo had the mentality. They both had in spades what the other lacked. And you know what? They both continue to work and grow together from here on. I mean, Bakugo definitely had more to grow from considering how dickish he was, and you typically don't want your heroes to be dickish, but they learned from each other regardless, and Bakugo especially changes the most character-wise. A lot of people just choose to ignore it because he's still just as loud. The little moments of Bakugo helping out his homies like Kirishima with their own issues and showing them that they're stronger than they realize and to play to their strengths, extorting his nigga Kaminari to give the class a little chuckle when he realized that tensions were high, or committing fully to their class's school festival performance for the sake of making Aries smile. Even to the bigger moments like the complete, perfect victory of Bakugo's team in the joint training arc, which was only possible because he no longer tried to do everything by himself. Working with and believing in his team was the only reason that was possible. Or his own sacrifice to save Deku from Shigaraki when his body moved on its own to save him, just like Deku did for him in the very first episode. Or his full-blown apology and admission of guilt towards Deku after Deku himself opted to go rogue thinking that he had to handle everything on his own. A lesson that Bakugo just learned. Bakugo and Class 1A had to remind Deku of the power of friendship, my nigga. That was almost definitely not how Bakugo was moving in the first couple seasons, because he realized the error of his ways and grew to become a better person, just like Shoya did. And that's why so many niggas hate him! Just like they do Shoya and a silent voice as a whole, because they just can't see past their bullying beginnings and believe that they have to remain that way forever. It's easier to keep hating someone that used to suck if you simply reject the idea that they've changed at all. I'd be more on board with the hatred if all these stories did was make excuses for their behavior and try to justify it, but no. In both scenarios, it's depicted as asshole-ish, and they're treated like assholes for it. Early seasons Bakugo was more so respected by his peers rather than liked, though Kirishima, with the man that he is, was able to break through to him a lot earlier than the others did. I just find it such a shame that so many people out there just completely disregard stories with good hearts like this, purely because they challenge their belief that people can, in fact, change for the better. And honestly, this ain't even only a story related thing. People on the internet now have a real obsession with being haters and staying haters. If you did something wrong like a decade ago, depending on the severity of the action here, let me be clear, that's just who you are now. Any current showing that you've long since disavowed that persona is rendered null to these people. The bad must stay bad. I find that it leads to a worse environment almost entirely, because this is different from simply holding someone accountable, which is what you should do. Like, what's the point of pining for someone to stop doing something that ain't so nice? They proceed to stop doing said not so nice thing, and then you just keep throwing said not so nice thing in their face for years to come despite their changed outlook and behavior. What good does this do anyone? What message does this broadcast? That everyone should be squeaky clean from birth to death, or else niggas will want you hanged for the rest of your days? We're humans, bruh. We're supposed to make mistakes. We're supposed to grow from them. We're supposed to change. And this applies to fiction too. Like, what would be the point of having a story with no sauce to it at all?
Yankee with no brim!
All the good characters are flawless, while the evil ones are cardboard cutouts of what an evil person is supposed to be. No tension or critical thinking to be had, just good guy good and bad guy bad. The occasional story being like that is fine, but if every story had to be like that, I think I'd lose my mind, bro mango. And while the rules are different between real people and fictional ones, at least they should be. Please stop treating fictional characters like real ones and vice versa. The people who act like this in one realm tend to act the same towards the other. Now, focusing on the fictional world again, people who think like this just auto-assume a story, plotline, or character to be asked just because it goes against what they think should happen to these mean characters. Newsflash, home slice. Not all stories are gonna be the same. Open your mind a little bit, damn! But like I mentioned way earlier, some stories do take it too far and try to make excuses for or justify this behavior, and those are no bueno. Don't open your mind that much, gang. We still gotta keep our brains on here. But now I'm gonna move on from bullies to characters with actions that are a bit more, well, okay, it's Endeavor. We're gonna address the big Endeavor-shaped elephant in the room, alright? Okay, so despite there being a huge gap in general awfulness between someone like Bakugo and someone like Endeavor, their arcs do follow similar paths, and as such, they still typically attract the similar brands of haters. Now, before I get jumped, Endeavor was indeed a total piece of shit, far worse than anything people like Bakugo or Shoya ever did. But just as was the case with Bakugo at the beginning of the story, we're supposed to hate this nigga at that point. A pompous, overbearing, controlling, and abusive father whose only purpose in life is about either him or his son being the #1 hero? Yeah, hang that nigga. I want him gone. Sure, he was a legit hero and was doing a good job at it, but he had, once again, a similar problem to Bakugo, focusing so hard on strength and winning that he basically neglects the arguably more important aspect of being a hero, the heart. He let this seemingly unattainable ambition overrun him so much that his anger started spreading to his family, because we learned that he most definitely wasn't always like this. But unfortunately, he was like this, and his entire family had to pay for it, most namely Toya, who ended up burning himself to a crisp just trying to live up to the dream that his father both gave and ripped away from him. You'd think that'd be his wake-up call to stop going down the path he was beginning down, but I guess he wasn't thinking about that hard enough. Instead, he continued down the path of shittery until one day, he finally got what he wanted. He became the #1 hero. by default. He only got the position because All Might retired. He could never be him. But it's exactly this that sparks a change in Endeavor. Ain't it funny how All Might's retirement sparked such massive shifts in character for two characters that most people, including myself, wrote off as nothing but assholes to hate on? MHA didn't take the expected route with either of these characters, and I honestly love it for that. All that fiery rage and ambition to achieve #1 status, but never being able to reach it due to his own inability, only to have it handed to him like a participation trophy in the end. It snuffed out his flame quick time, and now all he could do is reflect on the shit that he's done. He aims to become a better person and tries to mend things with his family, but as you can imagine, shit ain't that sweet. Especially with Natsuo, who wants nothing to do with him even by the end of the story. Even Endeavor himself talks about dreams he's been having, of his family living a happy life and sitting together at the dinner table, but he's never in them. He knows deep down that what he broke can't be fixed the same way again. That's why he's only seeking atonement, not forgiveness. Let me say that one more time. He's only seeking atonement, not forgiveness. The author of the story wrote down that the formerly abusive man Endeavor is only seeking atonement, not forgiveness. Had to make sure that was drilled into everyone's skulls here, because for whatever reason, it seems to be a detail that many opt to ignore despite being so incredibly important. But anyways, as if to laugh at this newfound declaration, Toya reveals himself to not only be alive soon after this, but that he was actually Dabi the whole time. Big shocker, I know. The mass murdering psychopath that attached himself to the League of Villains was actually Endeavor's supposedly dead firstborn son. And he aired all that shit out live in 4K to the world with receipts and everything, dog. Oh, this man was itching to get his lick back. This, along with, the actual destruction and devastation caused during the first war arc, caused the public's perception of heroes to absolutely crumble, with Endeavor's true colors being a huge contributor. Like, if even the #1 hero is out here beating his kids, who the hell are we supposed to believe in? And yet, despite his newfound public reception, he didn't cave and quit like many other heroes did. He remained steadfast after some good talking to from his children and wife, and pushed forward to tackle his biggest regret head on. After some shenanigans, he was actually pitted against All For One while Shoto was sent to handle Dabi at first. And to be fair, they needed someone with Endeavor's firepower to fight All For One. Shoto was strong enough to handle Dabi himself, it's fine. Until it wasn't. And now the whole family gotta pull up on Dabi to stop him from nuking the entire city. Even in the aftermath of the war, with Endeavor missing an arm and wheelchair bound and the whole family scarred up from trying to mend Dabi, they try to tackle everything again for reals this time, meeting up with what's left of Dabi to meet and talk with him, to look at him like he always wanted. Now that's enough of summaries. This ain't supposed to be a recap video, dummy dumb. I just needed to get everybody on the same page on every character I'm talking about. Cause Endeavor was absolutely a horrendous human being. I think we can all agree on that. But where the fandom is split is once he realizes, oh shit, I'm a horrendous human being. Just like the characters I mentioned before, a lot of people hate that Endeavor came to this realization and opted to change because, again, they think that this is Horikoshi trying to excuse his abusive behavior. Now, to be fair, people hating Endeavor is pretty justifiable. Far more justifiable than Bakugo or Shoya hate in my humble opinion. And he ain't one of my favorite characters either. But where we differ is that I can still enjoy and be intrigued by his character and the arc that he had, whereas many others outright denounce and hate both it and anyone who enjoys it, as if we're just chill with the abuse he caused. Like, no man, no! I don't know why it always has to lead to this. But that on its own is already one thing. I already talked about that heavy earlier, so I'm not going to repeat myself. At least not more than I probably already have. I apologize, it will happen again. Instead, what I am gonna touch on here is something I already went into in that previous video that I mentioned. I say that everyone should go and watch that video, and if you already did, watch it again. But you're not allowed to make fun of my audio mixing and quality. It was a different time, okay? But to summarize what I said there, because I don't want to sound like a broken record, I just find it quite funny that another interesting trait that the types that hate these kinds of characters have is absolutely loving off the villains if they were the ones done dirty first. And in my hero's case, that would be the LOV stans. These people absolutely despise any hero characters who did any wrong, exhibited poor behavior, or just, oh you know, didn't completely solve the deeply rooted issues that their society is built upon that causes more people to be neglected or abused and leads them down the path of villainy. Yeah, sounds pretty fair to me. That doesn't sound fair to you? But on the flip side, when they look at the LOV, glory to their almighty presence, bro. These babies can do no wrong. And what seems to cause this dichotomy is the fact that the LOV was wronged first. So they're allowed to lash out however they want, I guess. And the loudest amongst these types are 100% the Dabi and Toga stans. Good lord! Shigaraki has his camp too, but they're nowhere near as loud as these dudes. Like, I get that Dabi and Toga have backstories that many people can relate to, especially feeling forced to conform to what's considered normalcy in Toga's case. So they're quick to rush to their defense since they can see themselves in them, and at regular levels, that's a completely normal reaction. Like, granted, these characters weren't evil, far from it actually, but I'm quick to feel defensive for characters like Junpei from P3R and Kaito from Danganronpa V3 because I see myself in them. I understand what they're feeling, so hatred towards them can almost feel like a jab at me. But at the end of the day, I know I'm not them and they're not me. And I'm not going to play defense for any mistakes or wrongdoing that they might have done just because I feel them niggas on a spiritual level. I wouldn't even do that for myself. And this is 100% to toot my own horn, for that's a quality that these types seem to lack. Any and all crimes they commit, no matter how heinous, is excusable because, well, they had terrible childhoods. Like, no, nigga, that's not how it works. I think everyone and their mother can see why they became villains. It's understandable to a degree, but that was still a choice that they made at the end of the day. Going back to Toga's story again, I know why it resonates with so many people, because having to deal with the pressure to be normal by everyone around you, including your own parents, is something tons of people can relate to, myself included to a degree. And especially since it's mainly in relation to how she loves others, you can probably see why so many queer people are quick to defend her so fervently. However, that doesn't justify her going around and murdering innocents in the name of her love. It shouldn't be justified, gang. The characters we love and enjoy don't have to be squeaky clean and 100% justified in all their actions for us to be allowed to like them. It's okay, Brodio. Like, people have been loving off Dio for decades, and I don't think there's a single rational human being who looks at everything he does and tries to act like he was just a little baby that did no wrong actually. I mean, he had an abusive drunk of a dad that he literally spat at the grave of when he died, if my memory serves me right. And he went on to do some of the most heinous acts I've ever seen a character put to paper ever commit. Like, that man turned a woman into a vampire in front of her own baby, just so that she would eat her own baby, dude. He is a devil in a man's skin. But that nigga is widely beloved regardless, and no one feels the need to try and defend him. He's an evil, petty dickhead, and everyone knows it, but still loves watching him regardless. That doesn't mean we condone what he actually does. He's just entertaining to see on the screen. Like, what other petty ass nigga would gain the ability to literally stop time and then proceed to use it to simply make a grown-ass man feel like he's losing his mind by moving him down a couple stair steps every time he tries to move up them? It's fun. We just gotta stop equating enjoyment to condonement. These are not the same thing, Potato Chip. Now, obviously, characters like Toga and Dabi aren't anywhere near as despicable as Dio. But just like people who enjoy characters like Dio do, and have been doing for eons, Just enjoy your villainous character, gang. Own their villainous nature. It's alright. It's not gonna hurt anybody. No matter how relatable their traumas might be to you, you don't need to defend their every action because of it. Bakugo became my favorite character in the show, stealing the spot from Kirishima, and I don't feel the need to defend his bad behavior or his bullying of Deku. That was his flaw, and that's okay. Characters are gonna have flaws. They don't need to be flawless to be enjoyed, gang. It's honestly rather bizarre to see people who so adamantly defend and excuse the literal villains of the show be so quick to absolutely despise the actions of characters like Bakugo and Endeavor for the simple reason that they weren't wronged first. I can almost guarantee you, if they had some form of childhood trauma added to their backstories, they would have far more shooters, and that's not really a good thing. If trauma is the sole defining factor in what lets you like a character or not, you might want to start rethinking some things, Brodiferous. It's even more ironic that My Hero specifically garnered a fanbase with such a reputation. A story following Deku, a real ass nigga who, while not forgiving or condoning the actions of villains like Shigaraki, still strived to understand him and his circumstances, both so that he could at least try to save him and to help create a world where those circumstances are, at the very least, not as commonplace, to prevent such catastrophes from taking place again. A story with a heavy theme of reaching your hands out to others, both to help them where they're at and to help them become better people, ended up with a loud fan base that vehemently defends their villain's every action and relentlessly attacks the kid who bullied another kid and treats him like a demon in the same breath. Like, if you can't even do as much as look past Bakugo's bullying past to engage with the character, never mind Endeavor, how exactly did you think the villains were gonna get better? Did you really think a 14-year-old bully couldn't be saved, but the mans who were itching to wipe out an entire country could? Like, I think childhood trauma can only cover so much, gang. We gotta draw a line in the excusing stand somewhere. Really, all I want at the end of the day is for more people to grow out of this mentality. To stop asking and wondering whether or not they can like a character based off morality or trauma Olympics. Characters are gonna have flaws, some more villainous or heinous than others, and that's okay. Stories tend to have those. You don't need to defend or justify them to like them, nor do you need to attack or berate others for creating or enjoying characters with such flaws. Unless if they're excusing or even relishing in the harm that the characters are causing. I've said it a lot, but I need to make sure that's known. Them niggas are weird, peculiar even. Otherwise, there's really no need for all the theatrics. Like, I'm gonna lay you down and talk to you real for a second, because this is something else I often see pop up in these talks, and I think it's something really important to bring up. Look, I understand that bullying is more personable. Abuse is more personable. Rape is more personable. It's easier to envision and empathize or sympathize with. But for some reason, things like murder or straight up genocidal tendencies are sorta just shrugged off oftentimes with people who so despise those other acts. I get that it can be harder to relate to since they're a bit more out there. But barring bullying, I don't think we should be trying to compare these heinous crimes in the first place. They don't need to be power scaled. They're all horrible, and that's that. And I only bring this up because there are a lot of mans out there that absolutely despise a nigga who told someone to off themselves, like that ain't a daily online occurrence at this point, while being a ride or die for a miscreant with daddy issues that would and has casually murked a family of 3. Multiple families of 3. Childhood trauma can only absolve you of so much, bruh. And I think slaughtering innocents should maybe be one of them. But that's only going by the logic of you can only like X character if you can show that they were in the right or justified, that many of these people seem to have. Otherwise, why would I care? I mean, okay, I might look at Lite stands a little funny, but don't worry about that. The way I see it, if you just like the character or find them entertaining, I typically have no reason to find it weird. It's the mans who keep trying to act as if they're angelic, holy, flawless beings that grind my gears. We just gotta learn to separate fiction from non-fiction, fantasy from actuality, big fake from big real. Immersing yourself in a fictional world or character doesn't mean acting as if those worlds and characters are actually real. And likewise, treating real people like they're fictional characters as if they're not live, breathing human beings is bizarre. Cut that shit out, Brodiferous. We must improve. If more people can learn this simple lesson, then we can finally have more people engage with more stories and characters in good faith. And remember, engaging with something in good faith doesn't mean you have to like them. Make sure you keep that in your noggin, because I ain't saying that that's the only reason people dislike characters like Bakugo. I can very easily see why people still wouldn't like him, and that's okay. But more often than not, the reasons I see are simply because of how he used to treat Deku, so they completely write off everything else about him. Like, if you're gonna hate him, at least hate him because you know what he is and still don't rock with the nigga. Hate him with verified facts and logic, so you can hate more accurately, bruv. Or just cause you don't like his vibe. That's okay too. Let them niggas be evil, damn! It's not gonna kill you, gang, I promise you. Not everything needs to be black and white, yes. And oftentimes, it isn't. But it's also okay for characters to be inexplicable dickheads. Not everyone's gonna be evil for some good reason. Some mans just wake up and choose violence. Let's chill out on the babification of mean and evil characters, gang. Like, no joke, some people couldn't even handle Yukari from P3R for the light jabs that she makes at Junpei from time to time. I've actually seen some people act like she's a dickhead who deserves no friends, and I genuinely wonder if the people saying this have ever had friends before. And I mean that with full offense, fight me! Let's all end this parasocial relationship epidemic together by opening our minds, going outside, and interacting with some real niggas. Like me! So basically, fellas, what I'm trying to say here is that adult Jiro's fine as hell, bruh. Step aside, Kaminari!